Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another podcast from Optimal Bio. Again, this is our wellness series, and today we have a special guest, Peter Fioretti. He's a friend of mine. He's a husband, soon-to-be husband, father, and successful entrepreneur. And he's got a plan today to live to 120. And I thought it'd be beneficial for our audience to talk to him and to Tyler about wellness overall and longevity in general. So, Peter, would you mind just giving the audience a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, third generation Italian, and was always into sort of sports and health. Never really focused on it as a kid. Then worked on Wall Street, got into the big city thing. And 22 years ago, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina for a more healthy lifestyle. And all during that period of time, I was a successful entrepreneur. And in the last 21 years, specifically, I was a real estate developer and investor. And about 3 years ago, I decided to leave the big real estate investment fund business. I was the founder of all of my companies. Decided instead to transition into I'd call the second half of my life, where I'm focusing on a third of my time. I'm focusing on investing in very successful real estate entrepreneurs. A third of my time in giving back and making an impact in the world, and a third of my time having a lot of fun and just enjoying life. Including extreme adventure, including creating memories for my loved ones, and having a lot of fun.
So when I first got to know you, you struck me as somebody who's all those things you described, and also, you're a very in shape, individual. And I know you went to Norway and you I guess walked or sledded to the North Pole, and you've done some other wonderful things as well. Kind of walk back us through, your adventurous lifestyle. And then I guess over the last year or so, you decided to embark on, a different path as it related to, this quest to be 120 years old.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I've always had a adventure bucket list since I've been a young adult. And, so when I was, just out of college, I had no money and traveled to Pamplona, Spain, and ran with the bulls, right? And, I think the day I ran, 7 people got gored by bulls and died. So, I was always wanting to have sort of extreme adventure experiences. As you mentioned, Jim, a couple years ago, I trekked to the North Pole. My brother and I were the first ones to arrive to the North Pole in 2018, so that was exciting. I've climbed Kilimanjaro, and I've done a lot of other adventurous stuff. Well, about a year and a half ago, I had a little bit of a scare. I went through my extensive physical, which I have once or twice a year, and they found that I had more blockage than I should have in my carotid artery, and then in other arteries. And so I did a little bit of research and come to find, heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S., causing about 660,000 deaths per year in this country, #1. And so doing homework about, okay, well, I've got to resolve this, and I don't really like, a bunch of drugs and pharmaceuticals. How do I do this? And sort of delving into the longevity world, come to find out there are many, experts and scientists and doctors and practitioners who believe that we can live to well over 100, let's say. At the time I was 60, and so I said, well, I'd like to. I'm gonna have a goal to live to 120, not just live to 120, but live to 120 healthy. Healthy meaning I'm going to be able to play tennis. I'm going to be able to hike. I'm going to be able to swim, and I'm going to have my mindset with me at at the same time. And then my wife and I, when I'm 120, we'll go out for a pretty gnarly mountain climb, and we'll fall off and we'll be done. So that's the plan.
It's a brutal way to end the 120.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds great.
So the whole idea, it's not just live long, it's live long healthy.
Yeah.
So let me walk you back because, you know, a lot of our patients, I think, to some extent, you know, experience what, you know, you've gone through with traditional medicine. But first question before I get into that is, you're doing Norway, you know, you're very active, you're hiking and everything else. Did you even notice any reduction in your physical capacity, you know, prior to going in and having this full workup done?
No, I didn't. And what's interesting is, you know, if you wait until you notice, it may be too late. Not too late as to you're going to die, but it may be too late to reverse the damage, right? So the whole idea is to catch this stuff, not just before it happens, but way before it happens. And there are really easy ways to do that now.
So you're in there, you're getting this full workup done, and did they run a stress test on you? Is that how they figured out that there was a blockage going on, or was it more?
No, they did a carotid test, and then from the carotid test, carotid right here, for a normal, healthy person, there should be 0.6 millimeters or less blockage. Once you hit 0.8, it's sort of dangerous. And if you're 1.0, they want you to drive yourself to the hospital. Mine was 0.87, above danger, right? And for a healthy guy, that's pretty alarming because I'm supposed to eat healthy, and I thought I was doing all the right things, but I wasn't. So that's what it was. It was just a normal checkup, Jim. And I didn't feel terrible. I didn't feel like I was, you know, shortness of anything. But I could tell you, since I've been on this 120-year-old health span kick, wow, I feel so much better than good. That makes sense.
And I remember after you had the testing done, we had dinner one night, and you had mentioned that they wanted to prescribe statins to you. And you, I think at the time, the way I understood it at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't know a lot about statins, and because it's a traditional way to treat, I think you were going to still look into it, but you were a little bit more accepting to it. And then obviously you did not go down that route. So, you know, what did you do as an individual that you could tell our audience to do in terms of researching some of this stuff?
Yeah, excellent. So a couple of things. So 2 doctors prescribed, my regular doctor and my heart specialist prescribed statins to me. And I took the statins. I took it for a short period of time. And then I didn't really feel good after taking it. And that's when I really started doing homework on it. Jim, you provided some research to me. And then I met another profound, you know, scientist who is a specialist in this, and he provided a lot of information and research on this. And then I became very good friends with a health guru, Mark Sisson, who's written about 25 books on health and wellness. And Mark sat me down and said, you got to get off the statins today. And again, provided all the research on it. So I read through the research and I did my own homework and concluded I needed to get off the statins. So I got off the statins and instead changed my diet, getting off all sugar, low carb, sort of a keto-like diet, no flour, and worked through that change in diet for about 6 months. So I got off the statins, changed my diet, retested recently, just about a month ago, and the results were unbelievably better. So my heart doctor said he hasn't seen a change like that. And he said, good thing I gave you those statins. I said, Doc, I haven't taken them in 6 months. So then I sent him all the research and we debated for a long hour on the research I provided him. And at the end of that conversation, he says, "You're right, you shouldn't be on statins." So very interesting.
Wow, you're one of the, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, so Jim, I know you have a lot of this research, but I've compiled like a summary of it. I'd be happy to send it to you and you can share it with your folks.
That'd be great. Tyler, go ahead.
You said you thought you ate healthy, but then you changed. So what were you eating before that you went like low carb, low sugar?
So interesting. So I was sort of like on a, let's call it a South Beach diet. We eat 3 meals a day, snacks every 2-3 hours, make sure I always had enough, protein in me and energy. Carbs equal energy. In my mind, that's what was true. And so I went from that to, concluding there's no need to eat so many times in a day. You really need to eat when you're hungry. And if you get out of some of those bad habits, you really only need to eat maybe twice a day. That's it. And you don't really need snacks in between. And if you train your body to get into ketosis, you could teach it to get off of the carbs and use fat for energy, right? So if you think about if your body uses fat for energy, right? When you need energy, it burns off the fat, excess fat you have in your body. And it's a much more efficient way for your body to operate. So I basically get off sugars, flour, and, bad carbs.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially like what you said. Once you train your body, if you're not eating sugar, then you can fast for so much longer than if because sugar, you burn through it so quickly. And so, yeah, that old science said, 3 meals a day, 2 hours of snacks in between. It's just not how our body is supposed to be made and supposed to be, being fueled that way.
So interesting story. In this quest to 120, I am now intending to meet as many experts as I can in the field. So I meet this other famous cardiologist, and Dr. Agustin. And Dr. Agustin, he was the one who invented several of the standard heart tests that doctors give today, right? So the calcium score is really the Agustin calcium score. For example, Dr. Agustin also wrote the book, The South Beach Diet. And I sat with him for, it was supposed to be a 15-minute meet and greet, 2 hours. And he told me how, at the time, how that South Beach diet changed the way people eat. He was proud of it. And how much of it today he believes is absolutely wrong, including eating 3 meals a day and snacks. And he showed me numerous charts on how intermittent fasting and avoiding sugars and carbs is the way to go.
Yeah, because intermittent fasting, as you know, it gives your body the time to, heal and repair the cells. And then also our gut mobility. If we keep eating every 2 hours, our gut can't digest the food.
Yeah, so it was interesting. The 2 takeaways I got from it, one, avoiding sugars and intermittent fasting, sort of the eating stuff. And 2 was hormone balance. Because hormones affects everybody differently. People's hormones change throughout life. If your hormones change, your body reacts to food differently. And so, he showed me, 2 people eating the same stuff, at one period in their lives, and then 10 years later, hormones being off with one, not off, and adjusted with another, and how that really changed the body's health, and how it reacted to eating and exercise. Very interesting.
And you've been on BHRT on hormone treatments for a while, correct?
Yes, I have.
And when you approached the cardiologist on this years ago, was that an I don't care if you're on them, or is it more of, hey, why are you on them and should you be on them?
Well, let me go back with history because it wasn't really the cardiologist. My general practitioner, I was on hormones well before, Jim, you and I met. And I had a hormone doctor who had my hormones, my testosterone, checked up way too high. Not according to him, but according to my GP. And again, doing research on it, I also believed he had it way too high. So then what happened was I changed doctors. And Jim, thanks to you, you know, I got some, you know, different advice about where my hormone levels should be and my testosterone not being as high as they had been. And so we brought my testosterone levels down, and I felt so much better, you know, less, you know, jittery, less angry, and more healthy. Because, you know, too much of the testosterone will affect your longevity in a negative way.
Yeah, Tyler, when you see patients like that coming in and where they want, you know, higher testosterone levels because they've read about things and what have you, I mean, I know Dr. Brandon has a great way with patients, but how do you convince them to be balanced?
Yeah, so we always start by explaining when you get your labs back, like what does that mean? So like, for instance, the normal range. Well, what's the normal range on a lab report? It's the average population. And so the average population is getting sicker. So if you're in the normal range for labs, you're an average sick person, like that's not ideal. So our goal ranges for men and women for their levels are just what they were 20 years ago. So before so many environmental factors caused our hormones to decrease. So we talk to people about the science behind it. That goal range is the optimal because that's what it was. And the only reason why it's dropping is because of environmental factors or age, depending on the person. And so by putting in that optimal level is he was talking about, the benefits of it. And there's not those negative side effects. And usually, so BHRT, because we dose the specific doses for that person, it's going to be pretty tight range of what the goal is going to be. We're not going to, you know, be skyrocketing because people think hormones like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like, no, that's synthetic. Those are injections, many things that are going on. So that's why we really prefer the BHRT pellet method, because we can get in that goal range, unlike say shots and creams that can do peaks and valleys and get higher than wanted dosage.
And Tyler, if I could just add to that, what I like about your practice, different than others, is I interviewed probably 10 doctors specializing in hormones. I said, where do you think my testosterone levels should be? And they were all much higher than I was comfortable with, much higher than you all suggested as well. But when you go to your general practitioners, they all look at the norm, which is way too low.
Way too low.
When you take your blood test and your testosterone comes to 350, they say you are perfectly in the range, and you are not. That 350 is really bad. Yeah. And I feel really bad at that level, right? But your general practitioner just follows what the, as you said, what the norm is, and that's also a big mistake.
Huge mistake. And also, like you said, like you didn't feel right? And so we have like a funny meme one of our patients brought us, like hanging up in our break room, and it's talking about the doctor's just reading the lab reports and it was like, you look normal, but like the patient's like laying on the floor with all the symptoms. And it's like, you have to look at the person as a whole. It's one, the lab results, that is not goal range, but two, it's like, how does the person feel? What are their symptoms to get into the optimal living? Like you said, like you want to live to 120, but enjoy life. And that's what we tell our patients. It's like, this is the cornerstone so that you could fully live life, either if you're 50, 70, or 90. You know, people have this connotation that when you age, you should like feel sick or not be able to enjoy life. It's like, no, that should be the exact opposite.
Okay, so quick shout out. Peter, we're going to be open longer and longer in Charlotte now. So if you're in town, hopefully we can accommodate you at some point in time. But getting back to the quest, obviously you've got this foundation, you're balanced at this point in time, and now you have to make some personal choices as it relates to eliminating sugar, flour. I know you're a very disciplined person, so I'm sure you were very successful quickly in eliminating those things. But the average individual who has a lot of sugar in their diet, for example, or has a lot of carbs in their diet, may have difficulty doing that. So were there any techniques or tips, that you learned along the way, that helped you, reduce that sugar, reduce that flour and other things that were in effect toxic to you at that time?
Right. So Jim, I just did something very recent. Like I just got done with this a couple weeks ago. I used a constant glucose monitor, CGM, and CGM is typically used for folks with diabetes. So what it is, it's evolved tremendously. Now, I'm a big supporter of the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation and type 1 diabetes. I am not diabetic, right? But what I've learned in my research is we've really got to focus on reducing our glucose and insulin spikes throughout the day, right? So imagine this: if you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and 3 snacks throughout the day, your glucose and insulin spikes and insulin is spiking 6 times a day, right? If you're eating sugars and bad carbs like flour, etc., that's going to cause your glucose to spike. So imagine you're going through life and having your spikes way too high, right, numerous times a day, versus not having any spikes above the norm and having fewer of them. That's the goal. So you now can have your doctor prescribe a CGM just recently in the last, 2 months, or you could buy one. And I highly recommend it because you take a 2-week test and then you eat sometimes good, sometimes not so good. And you find out what your body likes or doesn't like, what it reacts to, and what is really harmful to it. So like I found out, I don't eat a lot of fruit, because it has sugar in it. But when I ate natural berries and strawberries and bananas, which are supposedly high glycemic food, hardly any reaction. So now I feel more comfortable eating fruits. It doesn't spike.
That's so
neat. Right. So now, if you want to see how your body's being harmed, you can use the constant glucose monitor, or if you'd like, you could stick your finger and take your glucose after 30 minutes after you eat a meal and see what the sort of levels at. That's a little bit more simple if you don't want to do the CGM. So I think a way to support yourself is to find out how your body reacts. Now you could also feel if you feel tired. So, why is it I'm Italian? I like my pasta. When I eat pasta and heavy sauce with a couple glasses of wine, what happens? I want to take a nap. Well, really? So now you know why. Because your glucose shoots up, insulin shoots up, then it crashes down, and you're exhausted, right? So now, how do I avoid that and still have my pasta? I use 00 flour from Italy, which isn't poisoned like the flour we have here in the States, right? 00 pizza. And lo and behold, my glucose does not spike with that more healthy choice.
So I've thought about getting a glucose monitor. So you just convinced me to do it, because I was like, if I get that, am I going to just go down this rat hole that I shouldn't? But I'm definitely going to do it. So that's very interesting. And what you said about fruit, because I used to be a couple years ago, low carb, no fruit, the same thing. Cause I was fruit, sugar. Long story short, I was on my own wellness journey. Now I should also add to live to 120. And I started adding some fruit back in. And my body, it makes my body feel good. So it's interesting, to see the glucose monitor to really be okay, in my body, what is happening right now, to see what works. And everyone's so different. And I think that's the key part too, because I believe there should be like certain foundations of what you should eat. Like inflammation, it's the root cause of, I think, all diseases, and the sugar causes that. But, having those foundations and then figuring out what makes your body tick properly.
Right. And Jim, you don't look, I love food. I love wine. I love tequila. I'm not going to
the healthiest alcohol.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop enjoying life, right? And so, but there are things you can do that, substitute the high sugar choices for the very low sugar choices very easily and taste just as good.
Completely, especially.
Go ahead, T.
Exactly, because I haven't had gluten since 2018, and people are always like, how do you not eat gluten? How do you not do this? And I'm like you said, there's so many easy choices now, and it's that balance, because it's not like you're going to say like never have sugar again, but making those choices to balance out your other ones too. And because you need to enjoy life, you need to have that glass of wine, so it is. And so I made a wellness guide for our patients just so that they could realize that it is easy, to figure out, this wellness and what food to eat, because there's so much marketing out there telling you what to eat when you really shouldn't be, especially like you said, the food sources, like the flour in Europe is very different than here. Just making those wise choices when you can.
And I never believed this until I used my CGM. But the order in which you eat your food is extremely important. So let's say like my weakness is ice cream. I just like ice cream. Ice cream is not that good for you. So my friend who likes ice cream, he did this test, and I did it also. If you just eat ice cream, your glucose shoots up and then shoots down. Terrible. And if you're diabetic, that's not good. But if you're not diabetic, it just causes your body a lot of stress. But if you have a teaspoon of peanut butter or almond butter first, and then have your ice cream, glucose smooth, because it has that fat and protein in there first, and then the sugar doesn't affect it as much. So you can learn how to do that. So what do you do when you go to a restaurant? The last thing you want to do is grab the bread, start eating the bread, and have a cocktail, right? The best thing you can do, get some olive oil, dip your bread in a lot of olive oil, right? And wait to have your drinks with food. Makes a big difference.
And only eat the bread if it's good bread. Don't waste it if it's just, bad random bread on your table.
Exactly.
True, but how do you know if it's good bread or bad bread?
I meant like if you actually love it, or if you're just eating it because it's on the table. I would say for the most bread, like that you're eating at a restaurant, is probably not ideal, but if it's worth it to you is how I was defining good and bad.
Right.
All right, so just because you and Tyler kind of ran off the reservation for a second, but just so I understand, the glucose monitor was something that worked for you, where it basically monitored what was good and what wasn't necessarily that great for you, and that has enabled you to, provide a strategy and a balance for your diet going forward.
Right.
Okay, great. And obviously we've talked about this in previous podcasts as well, and you hit the nail on the head again. Everybody is different. And the problem with traditional medicine is, they prescribe and they treat as if one solution fits all. And we have 330 million people in this country, and every single one of us are different. So I like the fact that you've customized, your strategy, your diet, to what works best for you.
Yeah. So Jim, in this research I've done, I've concluded the glycemic index is really a farce, because it's the average of how it affects everybody. Mm-hmm. But you can take brown rice, and it could affect, and you can take brown rice, you can take ice cream, and the brown rice could be a lot more detrimental to one person than the ice cream, believe it or not. And obviously vice versa. And there's a TED talk on this, 20 minutes, that's amazing, where they tested a couple of thousand people, what supposedly, healthy carbs versus sugary carbs, and everyone reacted differently, including one of the founders of this CGM that I used. She says that she found out that bananas, although supposedly high glycemic on the chart, for her, better than berries, and berries, much better. Berries shot her sugar levels up. Bananas did nothing. So it's very interesting to see how your body reacts, whether that's what carbs or protein or fat, whatever it might be.
So let's talk a little bit about wine. Obviously, you're a wine connoisseur. We have friends that come over to the house every once in a while, and they always bring this fit wine that she drinks. I can't stand it. It tastes terrible, but evidently it's got a very low sugar content. And she obviously, like you, like me, like others, is very into health. What have you found in wines, and are there better ones and for that meet your strategy at this point in time?
Yeah. So I think if you want to buy wines that are priced in the $20 to $50 a bottle, $20 to $45 a bottle, Dry Farms wines is a great firm to go to. I don't like most of their wines. They're just not big enough for me. What Dry Farms Wines does, though, is they test all these wines and make sure they're, sort of organically grown, no pesticides and that stuff, no added sulfites, which is very important, and lower sugar content. And all of that makes a lot of sense to me. For those of us who want nicer wine than that sort of price range, there are a handful of wines in the U.S., particularly in California and Oregon, that do make wines that fit that, that approach. They don't add sulfites, organically grown, and not organic like stamped organic, but healthy, no pesticides, and they do everything they can to make it, natural, right? And they don't add any crap to it. And sulfites is the one ingredient that gives you the headaches. So why is it, Jim, when we go to Italy and we drank way too much wine, we wake up the next day feeling just awesome? It's the salt. They don't have sulfites. Yeah. And they don't have sulfites because they don't have to put that preservative in to ship hundreds of thousands of bottles of wine across the country. So for me, I pick very select wines in California, but I also love the old world wines in Italy, Spain, and France. And most of those wineries do those as a matter of practice. It's not the exception, it's the rule. Where in the US, it's much more the exception.
So if you're really not a wine connoisseur, but you like, if you like wine, but you're not a studied wine.
Right, Dry Farms.
Yeah, but on top of that, are you also better off just, deferring to European wines, French wines, Italian wines?
I think so, yes. Yeah. Small production, not large production, family owned.
All right. So let's take your vice, your ice cream. Are you still eating regular, normal ice cream, or are you one of these guys now that, has bought into some type of product that looks like ice cream, tastes like ice cream, but if you read the ingredients, it's nothing like that?
So I bought some of those, all types. Is it keto ice cream, high fat ice cream, all that stuff. I can't eat any of it. It's terrible. So I just eat much less of the good ice cream, of the real stuff. The real stuff. And how do you know it's real stuff? When it has very few ingredients on there and no additives, then it's real, right? So when it's real and you just have a few bites, you're good.
Moderation is always the key, right? We obviously talked a lot about diet. We talked about hormones before. How about exercise? Prior to your switch, you obviously did a lot of adventure things, but I'm sure you worked out on a regular basis as well. And then post switch, has your workout routines changed at all?
Yes, it has. So I used to be, workout in the gym guy. And then from that, made sure I had some, a couple of days of cardio, right? I'd say as I got into my 40s and 50s, I took up biking, right? So a lot more biking, a lot more hiking, etc. I love exercising outdoors versus indoors when I can. Being outside in nature is key. So now, as I've evolved, I make sure that in the beginning of my day, I take at least a 20-minute walk outside when the sun's up, right? Or even if it's not up, just outside. And so, being outside 20 minutes, getting a brisk walk minimum is great. Having the sun out is a bonus. And then I've focused more on balance and stability versus strength. So strength, if I was, in the gym, let's say 4 times a week, now if I'm doing strength exercises, I only have to do strength once or twice a week. I'm working out, but I don't need to do, heavy bench or heavy deadlift at our age. Now it's more stability, flexibility, and cardio. So now, here's my secret. I like to have fun. Like, I don't want to have to go to the gym and say, oh, this is, a pain in the neck. So now I'm playing tennis. I bike with my friends. I took up kite surfing, which is awesome. So I'm playing sports that I really love to play. I love mountain biking and road biking. So I'm always trying to do things I enjoy and love.
That's great. For those that, let's say, may not have as many choices as you, just due to your situation in life and what have you, if you had to give some advice to other folks to get them to, begin to exercise more in their quest, to live longer, they can't do kite surfing, for example, what are some of the things that you would suggest they do?
Well, listen, so I traveled for business, you're in a hotel room and, some of the hotels don't have wonderful gyms and I never go to a spa. So it's like, what do you do? So I bring with me a jump rope and I do exercises that don't require anything. You have a chair and, you could do with a chair, you could push-ups, you could exercise your arms, you can just squat up and down 50 times, and you can use your jump rope. And in 30 minutes, you are exhausted and have an unbelievably productive workout. So you don't need anything fancy at all.
Yeah, that's great advice. And even if you don't even want to do that in your hotel room, then, walk outside and walk around the block a few times or, just do something to stay active. Tyler, what are you seeing with some of the people that come over to Optimal Bio?
Yeah, I feel like it's either a yes or no answer. Like, yes, they work out, or no, they don't. There's not really a happy medium. And so, we really try to, show the importance of wellness overall. Like, yes, of course, we fully believe in hormones and that's the foundation of health. But if you just get your hormones and you don't eat right or you don't move, you're not going to get the full benefit. So you're talking about, it's like, even just if you have a morning walk every day, that's what's huge, especially as you age, you need to keep your body moving. As we all learned in like 7th grade physical science, like an object in motion is going to stay in motion and the opposite too. So, that flexibility, the core strength, mobility is key as you age. And so we really try to make it simple. Again, like, you don't have to go to a gym, just find something that you like, that you are moving your body daily.
Tyler, do you encourage your patients to do that 10,000 step challenge every day? Because
Yeah, I was like, actually, we should do that because we've never really said that, but we always do say you need to move every day. Especially, I'm a huge proponent in the morning workout because you never really know how your day is going to end. And then, as we know, like endorphins really do make such a big difference. So I think that you just hit something. We're gonna tell our patients to do the 10,000 step goal a day because people always think like you have to do so much, and it's like no, just walking is so key, especially if you're starting from ground zero. So optimal bio 10,000 steps, here we come.
Hey, we learned something new.
Right?
Last thing, Peter, sleep. Mm-hmm. Are you sleeping better than you did 5 years ago?
Absolutely. I used to be able to camp. I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? I want to be as awake as much as possible and productive as much as possible to work and play, have more hours for work and to play. And, you know, all this research came out that I sort of ignored. Well, about a year and a half ago, a friend of mine who's very fit at over age 70 said, you know, I want you to change one thing. You need to sleep more. And I'm like, I sleep, you know, plenty. I sleep 5-6 hours a day. He goes, here's some research. Read it. You got to sleep 7-8 hours a day. And so in this whole health span longevity, Jim, I did the research, did the homework. I now sleep 7 hours a day, and I feel so much better. And I wake up naturally. I don't need an alarm, and my body clock, you know, tells me when I have to wake up. And so I think sleep is one of the most important things for your mindset and your healthy body. Absolutely.
You being a high energy guy, do you have a hard time getting to sleep?
I have a sleep routine, and I start about, really, I don't eat anything for at least 3 hours before I go to sleep. So I don't eat until 11 p.m. and then go to sleep at 11:30. So 3-hour gap so my body digests. Why? Because when you get to bed, you don't want your body working hard digesting. You want it to be done with that. Then I do some, if I have any stress, I'll do some meditation. I'll relax. I won't watch or read any news or anything negative in that 3-hour period. I'll watch something funny. I want to laugh, and then I'll journal. And I usually journal, you know, what I'm grateful for, you know, for that day. Just a quick journal, takes me 5 minutes, and really has me appreciate life, and you know, and everything that I'm, you know, grateful for. So I really put myself in a physical situation and a mindful situation, so I'm very relaxed. I also then turn down the temperature to, you know, fairly cool, 65 degrees, and make sure no light enters into the room. And so, you know, again, I'll just make sure that there's nothing that's going to interfere with my sleep. Also, electronics is very bad for you to have in your room. So all the electronics get turned off or leave the bedroom. And so with that sort of protocol, yeah, I find it that I'm asleep within 5 minutes after I hit the pillow.
Oh, wow. I know I'm a person that could stay up forever and ever. And then I really realized, like you, I'm like, wow, sleep is key to health. And so I make it a point to go to sleep at a decent time and at least have 7 hours. But especially by having a morning workout, it motivates you to go to bed earlier.
That's a great routine, Peter. And I know some of the other people I talk to, they like to take a shower, you know, about 20 minutes before they go to bed, so they feel cleaner and whatever. But again, different techniques for different individuals. So to conclude, we always, you know, ask each person on the podcast to give us 5 takeaways, best pieces of advice that we can give to our listeners. So I'll have Tyler go first, and I'll have you finish.
Great.
So my number one is always number one, always work out in the morning. work out, I would say 5 times a week, whatever that looks like for you. Number 2, keep learning. I think that is key. 3, travel, whether it's getting on an airplane or going somewhere different for 30 minutes. I think it's a huge mindset and motivation. 4, just look at what you're putting into your body, like physically, mentally. It makes a huge overall impact with your health. And then find what makes you happy.
All right, you're up.
Okay, number 1 is to have a healthy mindset. You know, if you have a mindset of healthy longevity, and you'll just surround yourself with lots of support to live healthy. So that's number 1. Number 2, healthy sleep and sun in the morning. So sleep, wake up, outside, sun. 3, healthy diet. Find out the diet that works for you, what works for me, doesn't work for others. Find a diet that keeps you healthy and go with it. 4, exercise regularly and do things that are fun, that are not, a burden, but enjoyable. And number 5, focus on strong relationships and being grateful for all the things you have. I think that relationships and the ability to feel how grateful you are is just a wonderful, way to stay healthy.
Well, it's great advice, and we certainly learned a lot having you on the podcast today. And we thank you for your time, and obviously wish you the greatest success in your quest to 120. We'll say from a personal viewpoint, I've known you for a number of years, and you're younger now than you were, 4 or 5 years ago when I met you. So I always look up to people, and you're one of my mentors, and I continue to watch your success and wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks, Jim. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Bye.